Recording live from the Lucky Number 7 Lounge, this is Dine Drink Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody stuck at home, wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. I'm your host, John, also known as the Baller on a Budget, and you have found episode number 76, where we're going to break down some Las Vegas news while we sip on some fantastic booze. But before we could do any of that, we've got to bring in the founder of Dine Drink Travel and Dine Drink Vegas himself. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking about the high roller formerly of the High Plains, the leader in the luxury lounge, the king of comps, the Alabama slammer, the man who's always waiting on that limo to take him to his next luxurious Las Vegas destination. I mean, Bill. Good evening, Bill. How are you, sir?
Good evening, John. I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing good. I've noticed in our audio, though, that I sound like I have a lisp, and we've played with our settings, but I'm feeling it happen again. It's not the audio. I know what it is.
What is it?
All of the citrus juice and the cocktails we've been doing lately makes me salivate, and then when I get all salivaty, I get a little lispity.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we solved that problem, but I think we could solve more problems if we actually finish drinking our cocktails.
Unfortunately, this week's cocktail is only going to make the lispity worse, but we're going to jump into it anyway. So tonight, Bill, what I have for your enjoyment and de-sobering is called the Red Grasshopper. This is a variation on a margarita. It's not a margarita because the ingredients are different, but it would fall under the sour or daisy category. The ingredients go like this: 2 ounces of the tequila of your choice, 1 ounce of freshly squeezed lime juice, 3/4 of an ounce of honey syrup, which eagle-eared listeners will know that we used in last week's cocktail, thus I knew Bill had it. You put all of that in your cocktail shaker with ice, strain it, serve it up. You could do rocks if you want. And then the garnish is where this thing gets really interesting. You garnish by sprinkling on smoked paprika. So, Bill, what did you do, and did you make any variations?
No variations. I went exactly to recipe. The tequila I used was Centenario Añejo because the recipe didn't say what age of tequila you were supposed to use, so I decided to go with something more aged. I got very nearly 1 ounce of lime juice from squeezing 1 lime. Honey syrup is a trick I like. What I'm confused about, John, and I'm assuming you're going to be able to explain this to our listeners and for that matter to me, what is it that the smoked paprika is bringing to this party?
Well, it depends on how fresh and flavorful your smoked paprika is, but hopefully just a little hint of smokiness and a slight hint of spice. But I couldn't find smoked paprika, but I think I came across something better because by that comment, Bill, I'm guessing the paprika is not doing much of anything.
I mean, it's there. It's just, I can tell my cat's in the room. I don't much care. It's not making a difference to the environment in the room. Like I can tell that the paprika is there, but it's a pretty minor difference in the drink.
Okay, that's fair. And by the way, do you know why this technically isn't a margarita?
I do not. Why isn't it a margarita?
Because in a classic margarita recipe, there's always going to be an orange liqueur, an orange brandy or triple sec or, a tequila base, but there's going to be an orange liqueur. Without the orange liqueur with some other sweetener, it's a sour, but it's technically not a margarita. So, Bill?
So I was incredibly close to adding some orange bitters to this. I'm like, you know what'd be good there? I'm glad I didn't because that would have gotten us even closer to this being an actual proper margarita.
Yeah, which there are places that make margaritas without the orange in it, so people break this rule all the time. So, Bill, with mine, I made 2 things different than you. One, I don't know if you've ever seen this particular bottle that the listeners can't see. This is Cabrito. Cabrito is really good, very affordable tequila. It only clocks in at 80 proof like most of them, but this one's the Reposado, but usually I get the Blanco. Cabrito runs, even in our market where things are overpriced, well under $30 a bottle, sometimes right around the $20 price point. And it is a truly excellent tequila, not a top shelfer, but this is an excellent tequila, right? The other thing was we were out of smoked paprika. So I put cayenne pepper in mine, and Bill, I could taste the cayenne pepper.
So I actually think this drink would have been really good with the cayenne pepper. I think that sort of a spicy kick would have made a difference. Honestly, this tastes pretty similar to a lot of the margaritas I've had. Also, so I just finished making this drink shortly before we started recording. The longer that the paprika is in there, the more this absorbs. Now, you're not going to walk into a bar and let your cocktail ingredients sit for half an hour. That's not how things go. But I am, just in the few minutes since we started talking, the paprika is becoming more prominent.
Yeah, and I will say, do you find now, is it adding anything flavor-wise?
Sorry, listeners, I had to stop to take a sip because I'm a man of science, so I had to explore. And let me try that one more time. Maybe some smokiness. There's not any spice at all because it's paprika, right? And it's paprika and something that's already got a syrup in there. So no, it's not spicy at all. Maybe just a little bit of smokiness.
So I think I'm going to call it the way to go with this is the cayenne pepper because this is lovely. And I do like the spice with tequila, and spicy margaritas are a thing. There's a million different ways to get there. Yeah, I quite like this. I actually prefer this over my standard margarita. Now, my wife would not drink this, but I'm down with it.
Now, would she not drink it because of the spice or because she wants the orange?
No, it would be the spice. It would be the spice.
Fair. Well, John, I know that it's not my favorite drink we've ever made on this podcast, but it's absolutely in the upper half, and it's absolutely something I could see making again and something I could see making for Rachel.
Well, I think I'm glad you enjoyed it. Do we want to preview next week at all, or do you want to hold that for the listeners?
Yeah, we will talk about this for just a second. So, listeners, in episode 11, we made quite possibly the worst drink that man has ever made. John entered into ChatGPT some very basic instructions, and it spit out a terrible drink. Go back and listen to episode 7. I try super hard most episodes not to curse on the air, but I probably did at that time. Like it was bad. It was super bad. In other news, John has been trying to tell me since we started drinking together over a decade ago that there's a scotch out there that I would like. So what we're doing for the next episode is I entered into Google Gemini my preferences for liquors and told it to make me a scotch drink for people who don't like scotch. And I'm going to revise it several times, but that's going to be the basis of the drink of the day for next week. Letting ChatGPT, in this case, Google Gemini, suggest a cocktail, just giving it a whole lot more instructions and rounds of refinement.
Yeah, I think last time we were talking about fountain blue, so we wanted a blue cocktail, and what we got was a monstrosity.
No, we were talking about the firewall that failed at MGM.
Oh, you're right.
And we created the firewall fizz. And I think the only instructions you gave ChatGPT were create a drink for a firewall failure or something like that. And we call it in my house to this day Smurf Barf.
It was terrible.
It was bad. It was super bad.
I applaud you because you swore up and down we'd never do an AI generated drink again. And you also swore you would never like scotch. And here you are intentionally letting AI guide you into the land of scotch. So, Bill, I applaud you. I think there's some personal growth there.
So the whole point of our podcast is about expanding your taste and the sorts of things you do. I've also, if you keep AI in its lane, it can be a useful tool. So yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot. But John, should we move on and tell our listeners about what's going on in Las Vegas news?
We absolutely should. For our first story, no surprise, we are stealing from Scott of Vital Vegas, who reported that a hacker group called the Shiny Hunters have stolen hundreds of thousands of files from the Wynn Encore's computer system, and they won over $1 million worth of Bitcoin as ransom. As of Sunday morning, no statement from Wynn was released on the matter. I did look very briefly today. I didn't have much time to web search. Still haven't seen a statement from the Wynn, but there's a chance I missed it. Bill, we've been through this before, but it seems like, if memory serves, Caesars and MGM paid a lot more in ransom than just over $1 million. What do you make of this particular attempt?
So, when Encore is just, depending on how you count, one or two properties. So it's a smaller thing. It sounds like they may have stolen fewer files. And my guess is that the casino groups in Las Vegas are just baking this into the cost of doing business because, of course, they've all got huge and well-funded IT departments. But at some point, a well-motivated hacking group is going to get through. I don't pretend to know what the best business decision is in a setting like that. I hope that everybody's data is safe and none of the clients and customers wind up getting hurt out of this.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure they have an insurance plan for exactly this. And I rather imagine, as we saw with the Caesars case, that the hackers know how much the insurance company is willing to pay, and they're going to land at that number.
I would be shocked if it was anything else. I do want to follow up on that next week, though, John, because if there's any further news, because I'm going to be curious to see what happened there.
No, that's more than fair.
Fair. Well, in other news, Scott also shared that Park Avenue, which is located between Park MGM and the New York, is being renamed in April after Bruno Mars. John, I'm a little bit curious about the strategy of naming streets after people who are still living, active, and performing, because we've seen so many popular figures have something go wrong at some later point in their lives or careers. So what do you think about this? Do you think it's a good business move?
I think if you have got to get a fan base of some musician excited enough to go to Dolby Live, and as we covered last week, spend somewhere north of $150 to get 2 margaritas and 2 bottled waters, you're going to have to do whatever you can to get the loyalty of their fans. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what this is.
All right. That makes sense. And to be clear, as far as anybody knows, Bruno Mars is a great dude. I guess I've spent a lot of time reading over the last week or two about various celebrity failures, which I'm not going to talk about here. You know what? I wish them all the very best of luck.
In other words, you're just hoping that he's not in some file somewhere that slowly gets leaked over 15 years of political infighting.
You never know. There has been, and to be absolutely clear, we are making no insinuation whatsoever about this particular individual.
No.
Gosh, there have been a whole lot of other folks who've been caught up in a whole lot of other news, which would make me nervous about adding any particular individual into, a permanent street name.
Well, Mr. Mars has been squeaky clean thus far, and I'm just going to hope and trust that he's one of the good ones, that he's one of those celebrities that won't break our hearts eventually. And we're just going to roll with that. Also, it's Vegas. So Vegas forgives most sins. There's some lines you can't cross even in Vegas. But you can get away with a lot of stuff and still Vegas.
You can. Well, what else do we have, John?
Well, Netflix's animated legal comedy Strip Law is now available for streaming. I told you last week, listeners, that I would watch it, and I did. Last night, I caught the debut episode. And let me be perfectly clear. This is profoundly, absurdly, obnoxiously stupid. Seriously, it is the equivalent of an animated lobotomy. That said, I kind of love it. It is pure trash television in what I think is the best possible way. The jokes are crass and predictable. The characters are stock characters. The situations are ridiculous. But you know what? I had a lot of fun watching the episode. If you're the kind of person that likes Adult Swim shows on the Cartoon Network, if you watched C-Lab, if you watched Aqua Teen Hunger Force, this is for you. If you hate those shows, stay away. My wife, on the other hand, Bill, hates this show. Oh my God. I found her kryptonite. This animated show is her kryptonite. She used to hate Archer. She will now tolerate Archer if it means I don't have to make her watch this. Bill, do you have any interest in watching just a profoundly stupid adult cartoon?
I do, and here's why. I am flying across the Atlantic next week to go visit my son Edwin in Ireland. I'm going to need to watch something. There will be whiskey involved anyway, so sure, I'll give it a shot.
I will set up one thing as a semi-spoiler, but I won't tell you which one. There is a theme song of a classic but often forgotten sitcom that plays a major role in the episode for no apparent reason. And it was my favorite joke in the whole show.
You know, I am looking forward. I actually think I will watch that next week on my flight over to Ireland.
Let me know what you think. I think you're going to land on Lori's camp. I don't think you're going to like it, but I'm hooked. I'm in.
I'll give it a shot. And if all else fails, whiskey. So in other news, Barron's and multiple other sources are reporting that Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao will fight in the Sphere in September. Mayweather won a previous bout in 2015, from which he is reported to have earned roughly $300 million. The thing which is interesting to me, John, is that Mayweather is 48 years old and Pacquiao is 47. So, John, I don't know exactly when in September this is, but any interest in going to Las Vegas to watch this fight?
I'm just curious if the main sponsor will be Depends.
Maybe some sort of an arthritis cream. So I remember as a kid turning in, and because boxing matches used to be a lot more common in over-the-air TV, and as a kid, they were always at the MGM Grand. I kind of want to at some point go see a boxing match there, but I also want to see something at the Sphere. I'm not going to lie, John, if the dates are convenient, I might go check it out. The problem is that what I'm willing to pay for a ticket is definitely going to be less than what they charge. I can't see myself paying more than, at the high end, maybe $500. I don't think you get a ticket for that price.
I think you might, but it's not very likely. And I will say this, I've been to the Sphere. I like the Sphere. I'd go back. I don't know that the Sphere is the right venue for boxing. We'll see how this plays out, but I would absolutely pay for this. I do think that they should make it a rule that the ring girls that hold up the round signs have to be the same age as the fighters. Let's give some older models a chance here, right?
John, did you just call our wives older models?
I want to live, sir. The other thing I'm wondering is what time the fight will be, because with Mayweather and Pacquiao, I feel like the fight's probably got to be about 3:30 in the afternoon, because they need a nap before they make it to the early bird buffet for dinner at this age. I'm just saying, if they touch gloves at 7, they're both going to take dives because they're past their bedtime.
Yeah, but in other news, that's if they get anywhere near what they got paid the last time, that's a lot of money, and that might be enough to let me get my face beat in, John.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I would step into the ring with either of these guys for a fraction of that amount of money and just let them go to town. Like, you want to beat up an old fat white guy? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and it's not going to take them 15 rounds to knock me on the mat. So my hourly wage out of that is going to be astronomical.
Yeah, it's going to be something like $7 million a minute, I'm guessing. Yeah. And I'm only planning on walking out with about $500,000. Las Vegas Magazine is reporting that Bobby Flay apparently does not have enough restaurants in Las Vegas and will open one without his typical Southwestern flair. Specifically, he will open Brasserie B Parisian Steakhouse inside Caesar's Palace. This to go along with the Brasserie B Bistro and the Amalfi Italian seafood joint. This will also be open for breakfast.
Which, John, that's actually the meal I want to eat there. So Bobby Flay is a phenomenal chef. I enjoy watching the content he puts on TV. I watched some of it this weekend. And he obviously knows what he's doing with the steak, but there's a lot of good steakhouses in Vegas. What I'm in search for is the perfect breakfast in Vegas. And I think that's the meal I want to eat in this steakhouse.
I'm always down for a good breakfast. I would give that a shot. I still wonder if, he and Giada De Laurentiis hooked up while they were traveling to Italy, but I have nothing better to do when I watch food TV but to imagine relationships between the cooks.
Good for both of them. And how about you, John? Is this a place you have any interest in checking out?
Oh, yeah. For a good breakfast, sure. Yeah,
Right.
I'm down for that. Now, I will say I would rather go to one of Chef Flay's Southwestern places for breakfast because I like my breakfast on the spicy side. But you know what? If we happen to be anywhere near Caesars for breakfast, I'm down.
Cool. Well, in other news out of Caesars, in their annual financial results, Caesars Entertainment reported that their 2025 income from digital gaming, so online gaming, was $85 million versus $20 million the previous year. And on the one hand, $85 million is a drop in the bucket for gambling revenues, but it's also a more than 400% increase from the previous year. So, John, if you're a gambling company in Vegas, at what point, how much do you want to invest in online gaming? Because on the one hand, it's absolutely a new revenue source. But on the other hand, if people can gamble from Ohio, why do they bother coming to Vegas?
So let me answer that this way. Do you think Sears and Roebuck had gotten on this whole internet thing before Amazon came along?
You know, that is fair. They should have been a little more aggressive. I have a fond spot in my heart for the Sears and Roebuck's catalog and the role it played in my life in the mid 80s.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing it's because you weren't a fat boy.
I absolutely was a fat boy, and whatever it was.
No, I get your.
It was
drift,
high
but that
quality
doesn't make
entertainment.
It doesn't make up for the husky genes.
There's that.
Can you imagine if they'd had internet back in our day? Anyway. My God. These kids will never know the struggle.
They absolutely will not.
Yeah. Seeking Alpha reports that gambling on the Strip was down 6.1% in December of 2025, typo on the sheet, compared to December of 2024, my second typo of the night, driven by a 7% drop in slot play, which generally indicates a drop in middle-class travelers and casual gamblers, because that's generally who plays slots. Even so, U.S. News and World Reports says that for the year of 2025, it was better for the Strip than compared to 2024. So two trends, year over year, they're up overall, but December down compared to the previous year. Bill, how do we split that difference? Is gambling on the Strip trending the right way or the wrong way?
I think it's trending the wrong way, and here's why. The good news in the short term is that revenues are up. The problem for the Strip is that revenues are relying on an increasingly narrow base of particularly wealthy gamblers. Those people have other options, and when a small group of people loses interest in Las Vegas and goes to Macau or some riverboat somewhere or wherever, then all of a sudden Las Vegas is in a hole. So for the short term, it's great for the people in Las Vegas. Over the long term, it can't possibly be good. The other thing which hurts is even if gambling revenues are up for these people, even they're getting comped their rooms, they're not spending money on stuff, and there's just not enough of them to make up for the revenue Vegas makes from non-gaming sources. The things like the restaurant meals, the hotel rooms, the cab rides, all the other things that make money for Vegas. So it's, good for Vegas in the short term. I don't see it working out long term.
Yeah, I think this goes back to our conversation in the last episode where the CEO of Caesars was saying, no, everything's fine. I'm not so sure. You know what is fine, Bill? My cocktail's gone, so I've switched tequilas. I'm now drinking Lalo straight. If you've never had Lalo, they don't pay me. We are not endorsed. However, Lalo people, if you send me like 2 bottles a month, I will say it every episode.
Absolutely. Speaking of, John, I am going to read our last news story. Then I'm going to go pour more alcohol while you go into our main topic of the day. Okay. But listeners, one of the things we like to do is bring just the weird, wild, and what in the actual fire news going from Las Vegas. And this week in Vegas WTF news, we note that last week, Jermaine Bryson, 26, was arrested at Harry Reid International Airport after tying her 2-year-old dog to a ticket counter when JetBlue denied her boarding over incomplete service animal paperwork. The abandoned dog, since renamed JetBlue, has been adopted by one of the arresting officers. There is no word on whether Bryson has been offered a cabinet appointment. So, John, I'm sorry. I should have stopped myself. I couldn't do it.
You have to shoot dogs if you want on the cabinet. That's how that works.
Absolutely, it is. I can understand being angry at JetBlue if they denied your dog boarding. Just abandoning the dog, I really struggle to understand that logic. And I am thrilled that things worked out for the animal because the dog didn't do anything wrong. And frankly, I hope the officer who adopted the dog winds up being happy.
Yes. Yeah. I'm all here for the dog. And let me preface what I'm about to say very carefully, because service dogs are a thing. And a real service dog can provide amazing comfort or serve very important roles in the lives of people who have them. Whether it's dogs that detect when somebody's going into a medical crisis, dogs that assist people who have vision impairments, dogs that are there for people with severe PTSD. I am pro service dog. What I am not pro on is every Karen that thinks they got to take their dog every freaking where in the world with them. And when confronted, that's my service dog. That's my service dog. That is not your service dog. That is your pet. I have dogs. I love my pets. But no, that dog is not serving you anything. If your dog fits in your purse, it's not a service dog. It's not. So, good dog, bad dog owner. All right, Bill, on that note, I'm going to start reading the main story. I got a lot of reading to do.
Oh, yeah. No, that's going to be important. Just know that I've read this story. I absolutely want to talk about it. But as much as I care about our journalism, John, and as much as I care about you, I care about alcohol even more. So I'm going to go pour a refill, and I'll be back when you get done.
Bill, do you know the difference between you and me?
You're even prettier.
I sit down for the podcast with 2 bottles of tequila right next to my chair.
You are better at life than I am, sir, but I'm still going to go fix my problem.
Yeah, you go have a drink. We'll get on to our main story tonight. The blue skies are getting bluer for Southwest Airlines. Just about every national news outlet has run stories on issues at Southwest, from the new boarding process and baggage fees. Travelers, including one of my own friends, have shared stories of delayed boarding, insufficient overhead bin room, disgruntled travelers, and even flight crews refusing to allow passengers to spread out on flights with lots of empty seats, including a picture from one of my friends where literally half the plane was empty, but no, you have to stay in your assigned seats because the flight crew is trying very hard to enforce the policy. Criticism is mounting, with travel expert Gary Leff telling Forbes magazine that the new policies make Southwest, quote, just like but less than, end quote, competing airlines. All of these changes were demanded by a hedge fund that had bought a ton of Southwest stock. They are now reducing their position as the changes they asked for are causing problems that will probably impact the stock price. According to the San Francisco Gate, Southwest is studying the matter, even as some travel experts and lots of Southwest customers are calling for them to go back to the cattle call boarding and at least letting one bag fly for free. Bill, you've never been a fan of Southwest. What's your read on this situation?
So I still think the cattle call boarding was a mistake, because I hated the fact that other flyers felt entitled to look at my boarding pass to make sure I was in the right place in line. So I flew Southwest from your town because it was a better way to get to Vegas. It was a better way to get to several other places, but I hated that. And if I still lived in a place where Southwest was a viable option, with this change, I would absolutely consider flying them. I think the mistake is Southwest has lost all the other things which made them distinctive, such as the bags fly free or the attempt to be friendly towards the customers. So they've become all the other airlines without offering the things that legacy airlines offer, like first class and executive lounges.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. As somebody who has been a loyal Southwest customer for all of my flying life, For the life of me, I don't understand what Southwest is doing. Southwest is to me what Wendy's is to the dining industry. It is a quirky, slightly offbeat, kind of sassy bargain option that has more soul than other big chain places, but understands it is there to be a value proposition. The minute Wendy's starts pricing itself like it's saltgrass, ain't nobody going to Wendy's. The minute Wendy's stops putting out funny tweets and starts marketing like every other stiff as a board corporate entity, ain't nobody going to Wendy's. Wendy's has weird little squared burgers. They tweet mean and funny things, and they're cheap. Southwest has funny, quirky flight attendants who read the safety warnings funny. They've got a weird boarding process, and they're cheap. And Southwest is taking away all the things that make them Southwest. And if you are going to be just another airline, then as a customer, I'm going to treat you like just another airline. I'll book you when you make sense, and I'll ignore you when you don't. I will not go out of my way to patronize an airline that doesn't know what it is, because clearly they're not as good at United or American or Delta at doing what those three airlines do. And we can argue those three airlines aren't always good at it either, but we know what they are, and Southwest ain't that.
So I am flying American next week to Ireland. And I don't know that I've done a sufficient amount of complaining about American Airlines on this podcast, and I should. And we may let me rant at some point. But the reason that I continue to fly them is that they offer me some things which provide very real value to me. For example, I can, on a lot of routes, a lot of times, afford to pay for first or business class, depending on what the route is. And I value those more comfortable seats. Their loyalty program means that quite frequently I can trade in miles to go to a more comfortable seat, which matters very much if you're going to be in a plane for 8 or 10 hours or something like that. So American Airlines, which frustrates me, also gives me something distinct. Southwest no longer gives me anything distinct. They gave up the advantages of what they were without gaining the real advantages of United, Delta, and American.
Yeah, Bill, I think that's really sound analysis. And I know nobody comes to you and I for our economic outlook on the world, but I to me, this is one of the bad things about where we're at as a national economy. I mean, we are two old, fat, white Southern guys who drink bourbon. I don't think anybody listening to this podcast will be surprised when I say Bill and I like capitalism. But I'm increasingly concerned with the version of capitalism that seems to have taken over America in the last 20 years, where it's all about short-term stock gains, the next quarter, maybe the next year, rather than the long-term health of the business. None of these changes were about the long-term health of Southwest. None of these changes were about preserving and growing a loyal fan base, customers who will choose your airline even when it's not the best deal because they like you and they like the way you do business. None of these decisions were that. It was a bunch of investors going, hey, let's swoop in, let's buy enough shares that we can control the future of this company. Let's push them to do things that we think will make money in the short run. And if it doesn't work, we'll sell before it dips. And that's exactly what happened.
It is exactly what happened. And they failed to analyze what the differences were that actually made sense for all of the other airlines. Like if you're going to become all of those other airlines without adding first class and executive lounges, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I'm a capitalist. I'm pro-business. I just wish people would remember that when a business makes decisions for its long run, those decisions also tend to be good for the consumers and good for the community. When you think long term, a lot of the worst things that happen in American business don't happen. You don't screw over customers and employees to squeeze out a little more profit because you're thinking about the health of your business in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And happy employees and happy customers makes for a business that can last and last. Southwest used to get that. Maybe this is the wake up call they need to get back to being what made them, in my opinion, the great American airline story in the first place.
Yeah, well, here is to hoping they survive. And here's why. One of the things which makes our economic system function is competition. And if Southwest doesn't make it over the long term, then that is a great deal less competition, including most particularly in flights into our favorite city, Las Vegas.
Yes.
They can't lose what they were without becoming what everyone else is over the long term. And if they don't do something, eventually the math quits mathing.
Yeah, it does. And that's how you become Pan Am. I was going to say that's how you become Braniff, but no, wanton corruption is how you become Braniff. But forgetting what makes you stand out in the market is what makes you go the way of Pan Am. And ironically, because Pan Am was considered the luxury liner, right? Mm-hmm. So it's two opposite ends of the spectrum. Southwest was, I joke about it being the Greyhound of the skies. Southwest was the blue collar airline. Pan Am was the elite airline. Pan Am quit being elite and they're dead. Southwest is trying to stop being what it's been. And if they don't learn a lesson, they'll be dead too. You've got to be true to who you are. Unless you know that you can outdo what the other guys are doing. Southwest cannot do what American does. They shouldn't try. They should just go be Southwest.
They absolutely should.
All right. On that note, a rather somber ending. You know what to fix that? Tequila.
Whoop!
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode tonight. Bill, why don't you tell everybody where they can find more Dine, Drink Vegas and Dine, Drink Travel content?
Folks, you can find us on YouTube at Dine Drink Vegas, where I bring you short and focused videos which help you plan your next trip to Vegas. Something like 5 or maybe 10 minutes on a particular hotel room or restaurant or something like that. You can also find us on YouTube at Dine Drink Travel, where you can find things like the executive lounges at airports, most significantly the Las Vegas airport, as well as things like my upcoming trip to Ireland. You can find me on almost a social media platform at Dine Drink Travel, but the most important of those is probably X, because John, where do they find you?
You can find me at Dine Drink John, where I'm happy to talk to you about Las Vegas, about adult beverages, about coffee, and about how the Cowboys might actually get this offseason right. We signed a running back. We're franchise tagging the wide receiver. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, we know you have a lot of choices out there in the podcast universe. We're so glad you took the time to listen to ours. If you've got a friend planning a trip to Vegas that would benefit from our sage wisdom, or a mortal enemy who hates listening to old fat white people talk and talk and talk, share this podcast with them. In fact, take that link, put it on all your favorite social media platforms. You'll be helping us grow an audience so that we can keep bringing you this amazing, this entertaining, best of all, free Las Vegas travel content. Thanks for listening, and until the next episode, happy travels. Bill, tequila.